Hey, Lazarus, how are you doing? And why are you stuck between two religions? Why not give them up, both up?
Hi, Matt. I don't know if you can hear me right now.
Yeah, we hear you.
Um, yeah, right. So, um, quick story is my father was a Muslim, and my mother is Christian Orthodox, and you know, like I've lived my life between both countries. I'm still quite young, like 21, 22, and it's been a challenge to sort of explain to people why I can't sort of believe everything that they believe. Like when I talk to Muslims, they use the argument that I'm circumcised, so if it's not my choice, I'm sort of a Muslim, and I'm also baptized. So still, again, and I know I wanted to maybe ask for a bit of advice on how to talk to these sort of people to try and explain. I don't know how to do this.
This is a little strange because it seems like you're calling a couple atheists to ask
Uh,
them how to tell the religious people around you that you're still religious, just don't agree with them.
yeah, that's actually I do believe that there is a God, or I want to believe that there is one, but so I've been like a spinning top that sometimes wobbles around, and I don't know. Um,
What kind of God do you think there is, Lazarus, that leaves you spinning around like a top between two religions that are tied together and yet very different? Why won't God fix
uh,
this for you? Why is God having you call atheists?
yeah, good question actually, because I tried talking to theists and they didn't have any answer that I could use to move forward with my life, and I've been stuck on it. I think since I started to understand a bit of the world around me, and I know I didn't have any chance with theists, so to say, to comprehend their side of things. So it was kind of instilled in me since I was a child. I understand that and I'm conscious of it. So I wanted to
Well,
Are
ask.
you evaluating
Um,
go ahead, Paul. Sorry.
Lazarus? You're evaluating perhaps that. Are you considering at least the option that perhaps there isn't God? Is that part of what's happening? Like, is that one of
yeah,
the thoughts in your head that maybe there's no God? Okay.
yeah,
Um,
and it makes me stressed, I think.
right. So I understand. I think Matt and I both understand very well that the families around us, when they hold certain beliefs and we start to entertain the notion that maybe those beliefs aren't as solid as we thought, they're often not open to that discussion, and that perhaps close family are not the people with which you should start those discussions while you're still figuring out what you're thinking, because those those conversations have consequences beyond just the academic of coming to figure out what you believe in a dispassionate and evidence-based way. So I think my
Yeah,
first bit of advice there would be, don't maybe have these conversations with close friends and family on this matter, if the conversation is going to bleed over into other aspects of your relationships, and you're sounds like as a young man, perhaps you're not ready financially and set up in the world in other ways. Potentially it's going to impact you in ways that are just not unwelcome. So I guess my first bit of advice is, maybe don't have those conversations primarily with them. I would i think you should probably find other people with which you can explore these ideas. And I love the fact that you are open to the notion that maybe God isn't real, because I think anyone who's close to that notion isn't having an honest faith in the first place, right? If you're not at least open to the idea that God's not real, then you're holding to some dogma. And I think that's maybe, perhaps you can see in a unique position where you're seeing two competing religions and you can kind of see problems with them both. That is a weird position, and not one that I've personally been in, but I get why maybe you might have some insights that neither are true. Do you have people in your life, like friends at school or friends at work, who are open to have these what if conversations. What if God didn't exist, and how could we reconstruct our belief without relying on a holy book? Do you have people in your life who you can talk to that aren't your family?
Yeah, actually, I have a very good friend of mine who's Christian Orthodox, who like amazed me how logically and how just how good he thinks and judges things around him. But like he's a biologist and he studied evolution very well, and he understands it and explained to me very well evolution. But when it comes to his religion and Christianity, it's like I don't know, somebody just switches around his neurons in his mind, and just the
I love
dogma.
that you're I love that you're identifying that, because a lot of us, in fact, everyone, I'm confident saying everyone on Earth holds some true beliefs and some false beliefs. I think if I could identify them, I get rid of them. But I probably hold some false beliefs. Matt probably holds some false beliefs. Hopefully, they're not serious ones. But I do love that you're acknowledging then that there's people can believe some true things, some false things. Probably, if you talk to some academic Muslims, they could point out some of the flaws in the Catholic Orthodox position. Matt and I probably could as
Yeah, yeah,
well. But
yeah,
and I think what Matt and I want you to entertain, and I think that's how Matt started, was, well, what if it's not choosing A or B? You have to decide, well, is it maybe C, none of the above, right? Like
yeah,
that's an option on the table, and it sounds like that's going to make you unpopular with everyone in your life, unfortunately. Matt and I, unfortunately, also have experienced that, where our family, our relationships with our families aren't what they once were, because we've now had to segregate off. We don't talk about religion. Fortunately, I think I can speak for Matt and I that we still have some forms of relationships with our family that are beneficial and good, but they're not what they once were when we all held sway identically. Um,
Yeah, I think
yeah, go ahead, Matt.
I the whole point was to you called in to say, "Hey, I'm stuck between two religions," and so my brain immediately goes to, "Okay, why are you stuck between two religions? Why aren't you looking at other options?" Which is why I started there, because there's three possibilities: either Christianity is right, Islam is right, or neither of them is right. And
yeah,
for me, the decision between those three options is pretty straightforward. Whichever one seems to be most correct or most likely correct is the one that I'm going to essentially run with over the others. And so if somebody's like, "Oh, I can't decide between Christianity and Islam," I'm like, "All right, both of those are religions that are Abrahamic, that are tied to
yeah,
the same foundational God concept. And so if one of them is true, either of them, it should be obvious. Like, what kind of God winds up with Judaism, Christianity, and Islam and doesn't bother to correct and say, "Oh, no, 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 I'm sorry. The Jews got this part right. The Muslims got this part right. The Christians got this part right. No, no, no. You guys got all three of you managed to get it all wrong. There's this other sect over here." If you don't have a way to tell whether Christianity or Islam is more correct, I would say that's already sufficient evidence that neither of them are correct, because both of them advocate for a God that would want you to know that it existed, would want you to know that this is the correct religion, that Christianity is true, that Islam is true. And the fact that this hasn't been solved for you and that you don't seem to have any way to solve it. And when you look at the history of human beings, there is a constant struggle between Islam and Christianity, between Islam and Judaism. So nobody else has solved this either. And no God has come forward and said, "Here we go. Here's how we resolve this." To me, it seems patently obvious that neither of them are believable. And so now the question then becomes, Do I need to pretend to believe one of them for some other reason? And I can imagine, so like if half my family were Christian and half my family were Muslim, and I had no way of telling the difference between the two, I'd probably be a Muslim because they're more likely to have incredibly negative, harmful, like my Christian family just thinks I worship Satan. They just think I'm living for Satan. It's, well, God will take care of him. That's it. I don't get any threats of, even if it's not me, even if they're not going to take me out. I mean, just if I was a woman and an apostate, am I going to get acid thrown in my face? Cool. I'm going to stay a devout Muslim until I can find a way to escape that sort of thing. If I'm in a Christian cult that is essentially keeping me from interacting with other people in the world, I'm going to pretend to believe right up until I can escape. And so if you're calling because you're looking for a way to escape, I don't, you're in Romania. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know
Yeah.
what your options are. I don't know what your social networks are. But if you're asking for a strategic assessment, you need to do whatever keeps you safest until such time as you are free to follow your own conscience, believe as your conscience dictates, and say, I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm an atheist, and let the chips fall where they may. Until you are comfortable enough saying those things, you need to do whatever keeps you safest and gets you to the point where you can make that decision. And that's my best advice on that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matt. It just becomes like a bit tiring after a while. It's every time I have to change and put on a new mask and like pretend that
Yeah.
I'm going with the flow, like with the ideology that they present. And I've had some talks with a couple of friends from both sides, and honestly, these friends, they're more or less not really accepting, but they understand like the struggle I'm in, even though they don't understand it fully. Actually, even my girlfriend, she's a Muslim, and it's a bit different. It's a bit difficult, but she understands me very very well and the predicament I'm in. And I think all of this like started when I was 15. My dad had a very rough surgery, and one of my cousins who was Muslim told me to pray for him, and I didn't. And my dad died the next day, and so I've been thinking like, oh my God, if it's my fault. Like maybe if I prayed, maybe if I did this or that, maybe he would have lived. But then I started to understand more that it wasn't really my fault. That there were circumstances, medical faults, things in our physiology that we can't really change, and that's when things started to brighten up a little, and I started thinking more critically about them. It just becomes so tiring after a while, having to pretend and not really having an honest conversation. Just like I don't know. That's why I wanted to talk to you guys. Maybe hear a bit of your stories as well. How you did it, how you escaped, as you said. Um,
Well,
even though
I'm a cis het straight white male in the United States of America with 25 buckets of privilege. So when I lost my tech job and had already publicly been doing atheism and secular activism for years without any consequences, I just decided to essentially do it full time. If I'm in a position, and maybe I'm a little weird, maybe this is privilege, but my parents think I'm working for Satan. But if my parents want to be a part of my life, they can be, and we can interact, provided that there's, you know, respect and all that stuff. And if there's not, if they're going to try to bombard me with religious stuff or, I don't know, other things that aren't conducive to a good relationship, then I don't need them. I'm one of these individuals. I don't care about my heritage. I don't care if we're blood relatives. You're family when you act like family. And I prefer the people in my life who I consider family, whether they're related to me or not, to many of the people who are in fact related to me. There are exceptions. My brother's my favorite person. I've mentioned that many times before. But if he ever turns out to be a shithead that's bad for my life, then I guess I'm just not going to interact with my brother. And I get it. Not everybody is in a position where they can make those kinds of decisions. I don't have kids to worry about. There are people, in relationship with kids. I don't have kids to worry about. And at the end of the day, if my parents and I aren't on good speaking terms, if that's the thing that's better for my life, then it's better by definition. It doesn't mean it doesn't suck a little bit, but I'm diabetic. I shouldn't be eating candy bars 24/7. Actually, nobody should be eating candy bars 24/7, but I definitely shouldn't. And it sucks that I don't get to enjoy them as often as I'd like to. But it's better for my life overall, even if in the short term it causes me some, I don't know, frustration. Anyway, I hope that's at least clear that I understand your situation isn't like mine and that I had advantages that other people don't have. And Paul's got a different story because there are factors in his that don't relate to mine. So I will stop now and let you hear Paul's story since that's what you're asking for.
Well,
Sure.
mine is similar on the parts that are important, and that is that I do not have to actively conceal any part of my identity in order to function well in society. But Matt and I both know and love people who do have to be disingenuous about who they really are, situation to situation. And Matt and I are the wrong people to first person empathize on that, even though Matt and I have both had to put on masks. And I live in a tiny little town in Canada, and sometimes being an atheist, that's not always the best label. But we don't have the kind of situation you are in, so I don't want. Neither of us are pretending that we firsthand get what you get, but we do know and love people who have to put on those masks far more often than Matt and I do. And all we can give you is our empathy and relay to you the people who we know and love who are in those positions, that it is awful to not be able to be your genuine self 24/7. That
Yeah.
don't feel like that that is a feeling you should be feeling based on all evidence, right? That is an unfair situation that you can't be your genuine self all the time. Matt and I both that wish for you that you will one day be able to be your genuine self 24/7, and we hope that you will be able to find a path for that to be possible. And we give you the bad news that that may well mean some compromises and or cutting off of some family in order to, if that is your ultimate, where you ultimately want to be. And that we reiterate that pragmatically it's okay that right now pragmatically you might not be able to be there because you can't control the circumstance you're in and the people around you. And so pragmatically, wearing those masks part of the time, we get it. Matt and I both did it at a very small fraction of what you're dealing with. But I think our message is really just one of encouragement, and that we acknowledge that what you're going through sucks. I think on the belief side of things, it sounds like you have gone through the process of trying to, if you didn't assume that it's true, try and build to what it's true. I think if you wanted to do that with the Abrahamic phase, you can just start with, forget whether Muslim is correct or Christian is correct. You need to start with, like, can you justify without going to a book that God is true, since they have the same God? And it sounds like you've gone through some of those
Yeah.
processes. So
Yeah, I did.
look, Lazarus. I mean, I think with this point we are empathizing with you, and we are hoping that you find a path through. All that we can do is give you permission to say you are on a valid path, that none of these are true, and that and that pragmatically you can't always admit that.
Thank you so much. Thank you to both of you.
Yep. All right. I appreciate you calling. I hope that works out for you. And I hope you got some information that's useful, and, reach out. I don't know if there's a recovering from religion that you can access in Romania, but there is on the web. So check that out as well. Thanks so much, Lazarus.